Do you ever grab one of your old Pokemon games and wipe the save file, only to beat a couple gym leaders and never touch it again? Well, trust me, you're not alone. I'm starting a fresh save file in Pokemon Omega Ruby and I'm never going to reset it. Here is my journey through the Hoenn Region in my forever save file. To understand why anyone would want a forever save, I need to explain the goals of this video. First off, I want to catch every Pokemon in the game. As we progress through the routes, I'll be going through the decks catching every single one. I'll also briefly touch on each Pokemon's dex entry as we catch them, so you'll walk away learning something new too. Secondly, I will be fighting every trainer in the game. I essentially want to 100% the game as I will be keeping this file, well, forever. Finally, I will be collecting every item in the game, so each time we enter a new route, I'll battle all of the trainers, then go back through and collect all of the items and catch every new Pokemon. And if you want to follow along, by the end of this, we'll both have a fully complete copy of Pokemon Omega Ruby. With the goals out of the way, let's jump into this beautiful game. The Hoenn region is definitely my least familiar region. I've played through these games a couple of times before, along with a singular playthrough of Pokemon Emerald, but there's definitely some gray areas in the storyline for me. For our playthrough, I'm going to be putting our starter straight into the PC, but since Trico is my favorite, I'm gonna pick him. Now, if you're confused as to why I would box this adorable green gecko, well, that's because I'm going to be transferring up a team that I shiny hunted in Pokemon Platinum. If you are following along, don't stress about this because these Pokemon will not count towards our Pokédex total. I just enjoy playing through the games with shiny Pokemon that I hunt. In addition, I'm also trading up a shiny Smeargle named Athena. I hunted her in Platinum and she's going to help us catch all of the Pokemon here in Hoenn. Again, this is not something you as a viewer need to do, but I encourage you to try out some different Pokemon on your journey through Hoenn instead of the standard Mudkip, Manectric, and Gardevoir. With a quick stop in Pokemon Bank, here's the team fully transferred up. First is Pinky the Mareep. She has an adamant nature, but we still support her. Next up is Melody the Swablu. She's a little overleveled, so she'll be staying in the PC for now. Following her is Neptune the Nidoran. He's blue, and that's really all I have to say on him. Next is Kitsune the Ninetales. I have some beef with this Pokemon if you've seen my shiny videos, but hopefully we can resolve it here in Hoenn. Fifth is Luna the Glaceon. I've wanted to use this Pokemon for a long time, but never got around to it, so now feels like the perfect opportunity. Last is Princess the Milotic. She also has an adamant nature, but we're gonna make it work anyways. And we can't forget Athena the Smeargle. I wanted to teach her Substitute, but I didn't have any Pokemon in Platinum that knew it, so I went with the moveset of False Swipe, Super Fang, Recover, and Spore. So with the game's tutorial complete and the Pokemon transferred up, let's start with Route 101. There are no items or trainers here, but 3 Hoenn staples, and the first that I find is a cute little Wurmple. Using the spikes on its rear end, Wurmple peels the bark off trees and feeds on the sap that oozes out. This Pokemon's feet are tipped with suction pads that allow it to cling to glass without slipping. Honestly, one of the things I'm really looking forward to is learning more about these Pokemon. Usually I catch them and toss them into the PC, but actually getting to know how they behave is really intriguing to me. My next encounter here is a Zigzagoon. Zigzagoon restlessly wanders everywhere at all times. This Pokemon does so because it is very curious. It becomes interested in anything that it happens to see. I can relate to Zigzagoon a lot, and maybe you do too. There's so many distractions these days, and sometimes I really struggle to stay focused on what's important. It takes me a while to find, but the last encounter here is a Poochyena. At first sight, Poochyena takes a bite at anything that moves. This Pokemon chases after prey until the victim becomes exhausted. However, it may turn tail if the prey strikes back. I find it really interesting that Poochyena is considered a predator. The way the Pokédex describes it almost makes it seem vicious. With that, we've officially done everything on Route 101, so let's move on to the next one. Just north of Oldale Town is Route 103, and the only thing we can do here now is catch a Wingull. Wingull has the habit of carrying prey and valuables in its beak and hiding them in all sorts of locations. This Pokemon rides the winds and flies as if it were skating across the sky. I think this is a super cool dex entry because I can imagine Wingull taking its owner's valuables and hiding them in super annoying spots. Moving on to Route 102, we have 4 trainers to take on. First up is youngster Calvin, and Nidoran can just barely take care of his Zigzagoon. Also, you may notice I did teach my Pokemon some decent moves. For example, my Nidoran here knows Poison Jab and Dig. This is not meant to be a challenge run or anything, but a relaxing 100% playthrough of the game. Not only does teaching these moves help in trainer battles, but the trade EXP boost will make it to where we don't need to do any grinding throughout the entire run. Bugcatcher Rick is up next, and he has a Wurmple, and now that Neptune is leveled up, he can take care of it pretty easily. Youngster Alan has a Poochyena and a Tailo, but our blue boy cleans them up like he's a janitor at a Wendy's. Wait, what? Finally is last Tiana, who just has a simple Zigzagoon, and with all 4 of these trainers taken down, it's time to catch some more Pokemon. But first, I want to appreciate these little scenes added in ORAS. These details blew me away the first time I played this game, and it's stuff like this that really makes me love the franchise as a whole. One thing I find fascinating about the Dex Nav is that it picks one of the encounters on the route randomly when popping up. For example, Ralts has a 4% encounter rate here, but it pops up immediately with the Dex Nav, saving us a ton of time running through the grass. Ralts senses the emotions of people using the horns on its head. This Pokemon rarely appears before people, but when it does, it draws closer if it senses that the person has a positive disposition. First off, I never would have thought these things on Ralts' head were horns. And secondly, the fact that it can sense a person's qualities is so cool. Just south, I hop over this ledge and pick up a potion, and then grab the Oran and Pechaberries located to the east. Then another Dexnav Pokemon pops up, and it's the 1% Surskit. This thing is so helpful. Also, I will definitely be shiny hunting something in this video. There's 2 new method hunts introduced in Gen 6, and I'm super excited to try them. From the tips of its feet, Surskit secretes an oil that enables it to walk on water as if it were skating. This Pokemon feeds on microscopic organisms in ponds and lakes. This is so fascinating to me because it's different from how pond skaters walk on water in real life. Having it use an oil to stay afloat rather than the water's surface tension is really interesting. The last Pokemon available here is Seedot, or Lotad if you're playing Alpha Sapphire, and thanks to another Dexnav pop-up, we can catch him pretty easily. Seedot attaches itself to a tree branch using the top of its head. It sucks moisture from the tree while hanging from the branch. The more water it drinks, the glossier this Pokemon's body becomes. I just assumed this Pokemon was born on trees, but having it manually attach itself to moisturize is such a unique approach to this Pokemon. With everything done on Route 102, it's time to check out Petalburg City. Our dad runs the gym here, but the only thing we can do right now is help Wally catch a Ralts. Also, you may have noticed we have a little bit of a disobedience problem with our Pokemon. It will be inconvenient up until the first or second gym, but afterwards it'll be smooth sailing. Just west of here is Route 104. Here we're able to take down youngster Billy's Seedot with a single poison jab and his Tailo with a second one. In the grass, I'm lucky enough to get a Dexnav Tailo to appear, and it's the only new Pokemon available to us. Tailo courageously stands its ground against foes, however strong they may be. This gutsy Pokemon will remain defiant even after a loss. On the other hand, it cries loudly if it becomes hungry. It's pretty funny to me that this guy will cry if he doesn't get his food, but refuses to back down from any fight. Also, if you notice that it's daytime in one clip and then nighttime in another, that's because I didn't play all of this in one sitting. Sometimes just 30 minutes here or an hour there. But I want to make it clear that there was no time changing done during this run. Afterwards, I grabbed some hidden items on the beach, being a potion, an antidote, and a heart scale. I then make my way north to grab the berries here before challenging Rich Boy Winston. He just has a Zigzagoon, but thanks to Neptune's newly learned double kick, we're able to take it down with a single attack. Route 204 is divided into 2 sections, the north and the south side, and in between them is the Petalburg Woods. We have done everything on the south side of Route 204, so we'll tackle the north side after the Petalburg Woods. I absolutely love this area. The green is perfect and it feels so cozy. Our first task here is to take down all of the trainers. Bugcatcher Lyle has 3 Wurmples, and despite being a little disobedient, Neptune is eventually able to take them all down. Afterwards, a Devon researcher asks us to help protect him from a Team Magma grunt, and Pinky makes her debut here, taking down the Pooch. For our troubles, the researcher rewards us with the EXP share, which is one of the most useful items in the game. There's one final trainer here in the woods, being Bugcatcher James. He has a single Ninkata, but seeing as it's immune to electric type moves, it takes Pinky 4 tackles before it finally falls. I head south to pick up a hidden potion and then exit the forest to grab a Pokeball. Once back inside, I notice a new Pokemon popping up on the dex nav, a Slakoth, so I make sure to add her to the collection. Slakoth lolls around for over 20 hours a day. Because it moves so little, it does not need much food. This Pokemon's sole daily meal consists of just 3 leaves. Honestly, I'm impressed by you, Slakoth. Just 3 leaves a day is a harsh diet. On the left side of the forest, I'm able to collect a Paralyze Heal, and then up north, I find an Ether and a hidden Balm Mushroom. There's actually quite a few Pokemon to capture here, so let's knock them out. First, I find myself a wild Cascoon. Cascoon makes its protective cocoon by wrapping its body entirely with a fine silk from its mouth. Once the silk goes around its body, it hardens. This Pokemon prepares for its evolution inside a cocoon. Second, I find the adorable Shroomish, easily one of my favorite Gen 3 Pokemon. Shroomish live in damp soil in the dark depths of forests. They are often found keeping still under fallen leaves. This Pokemon feeds on compost that is made up of fallen, rotted leaves. Shroomish, you deserve a better diet than this. I kind of feel bad for you. Last is Silcoon, which is also my preferred split of the Wurmple line. Silcoon tethers itself to a tree branch using silk to keep from falling. This Pokemon hangs quietly while it awaits evolution. It peers out of the silk cocoon through a small hole. I then go back and catch a second Silcoon and Cascoon because I'm pretty sure Beautifly and Dustox are not found in the wild, so we'll have to manually evolve them. With those caught, that completes this area, so we're moving to the north side of Route 104. I first grab the Echoed Voice TM from this youngster before picking the berries above him. Inside the flower shop, we can collect the Wilmer Pail, and just outside, we can collect a Pokeball, Super Potion, and an X attack. Lady Cindy boasts a level 10 Zigzagoon, and it takes Pinky a while, but eventually she's able to connect with a Thunderbolt to take it down. Last Haley has a Lotad and a Shroomish, but Pinky and Neptune are able to take them down without an issue. Twins Gia and Mia, though, are a different story. The disobedient problem is really starting to show here, but we're not too far away from the first gym. My Pokemon finally connect, taking down the twins. The final trainer here is Fisherman Ivan, but Pinky can tear through his fish with just a few Thunderbolts. And our reward is just some more berries, but we have finally arrived in Rustboro City. Here, we make sure to collect an X Defense, the TM for False Swipe, the Cut HM, a Float Stone, a Premier Ball, and the Quick Claw. Before I know it, I'm standing inside the Rustboro City gym, and it looks so good in this game. All 3 of the trainers only carry Geodude, so I'll spare you the details, but Princess got to take them all down with a couple of Scalds. Finally, we stand face to face with Roxanne, and as much as I would love to tell you how riveting this fight was, Geodude falls to a Scald, and so does Nosepass. For our victory, Roxanne rewards us with the Stone Badge and the TM for Rock Tomb, but most importantly, all Pokemon below level 20 will listen to us without question, so that's going to make these future battles a lot faster. Oh, and also Nidoran evolved into Nidorino. Just east of here is Route 116, and there are a ton of trainers. But while I fight them, I'm going to talk about my personal thoughts on the Hoenn region. I stated previously that I had little experience with this region, so I'm no expert, but what I do know is that Gen 6 has my favorite shiny sparkles in the franchise. I was kind of bummed when I found my first shiny in Pokemon Sun and Moon, only to realize that they changed the shiny sparkles that I know and loved into a big star. Don't get me wrong, that didn't stop me from shiny hunting or anything, but it definitely bummed me out. One of the main reasons I'm playing through this game is because I want to get the shiny charm. The Generation 6 games are the hardest in the franchise to get the shiny charm in, needing a massive 721 Pokemon. I do have a complete save file of Pokemon X and Y, which I can trade stuff over if needed, but if this video does well enough, I'll definitely consider doing a video just like it for the Kalos games too. Anyways, that's about it for my shiny rant. Let's hop into the items and wild Pokemon. First, I grab a hidden super potion by this ledge, followed by an ether and these chesto berries. Then we can hop over to collect a repel and a potion. The first new wild Pokemon I encounter is a Nincada, which I always forget is part ground type. Nincada lives underground for many years in complete darkness. This Pokemon absorbs nutrients from the roots of trees. It stays motionless as it waits for evolution. Living in complete darkness for years sounds pretty sad. Hopefully you'll evolve soon, Nincada. Next, I find the very pink Skitty. Skitty has the habit of becoming fascinated by moving objects and chasing them around. This Pokemon is known to chase after its own tail to become dizzy. Honestly, not too different from a real cat. Very realistic dex entry. Lastly is Whismur, and this guy's dex entry kind of shocked me. Normally, Whismur's voice is very quiet. It is barely audible even if one is paying close attention. However, if this Pokemon senses danger, it starts crying at an ear-splitting volume. This is the definition of unexpected. I know Exploud and Loudred are supposed to be, well, loud, but Whismur crying at an ear-splitting volume sounds awful. Regardless, at the end of this route, we can grab an X special attack before Mr. Briny tells us that his poor Pico has been kidnapped. Inside Rusturf Tunnel, we can pick up a Dire Hit and a Pokeball before challenging the Magma Grunt to a fight. He's pretty weak with his Poochyena, so Flaffy can take it down easily. Upon defeat, he hands over the Devon parts along with Mr. Briny's Wingull. Then, back in Rustboro, we can return the goods, and Mr. Stone tasks us with bringing some letter to a guy named Steven over in Dewford. I head south where we can use Cut to pick up some more items. A Revive, a Tiny Mushroom, a Miracle Seed, a Great Ball, and an X attack. Mr. Briny conveniently has a boat, so as thanks for rescuing his Wingull, he takes us over to Dewford Town. The first thing I do here is pick up the Silk Scarf from this Ace Trainer and then collect the Old Rod. There's two Pokemon we can reel in here, and the first one of them is Magikarp. Magikarp is a pathetic excuse for a Pokemon that is only capable of flopping and splashing. This behavior prompted scientists to undertake research into it. I know Magikarp is a bad Pokemon, but I didn't expect the Dex entry to call it pathetic. Poor guy. Next, we can head east and pick up a Super Repel before reeling in the second Pokemon here, a Tentacool. Tentacool's body is largely composed of water. If it is removed from the sea, it dries up like parchment. If this Pokemon happens to become dehydrated, put it back into the sea. I mean, this kind of makes sense, like obviously you don't want to take aquatic Pokemon out of the water, but how else are you going to use it in battle? Anyways, it's time to challenge the second gym leader, Brawly. Well, technically there are some gym trainers, but again, they aren't worth mentioning, so we'll skip right ahead to the gym leader. Brawly leads Machop, but Princess can take him out and the following Makuhita with a single Scald, continuing the Milotic sweep from Gym 1. For our troubles, we are rewarded with the Knuckle badge, and now all Pokemon up to level 30 will listen to us without question. With 2 badges in hand, it's time to make some more progress. Route 106 has just a few trainers and items to collect, but no new Pokemon. Fisherman Ned has a Tentacool, but a couple Scalds from Princess is more than enough to take it down. Next up is Fisherman Elliot, who leads Magikarp. Milotic can take it down with the Scald, and then I send in Flaffy to deal with the Tentacool. Last is Backpacker Grammy, who boasts a single Slakoth, and a Scald is more than enough to take it down. I then make my way back through the route to collect all the items. A Protein, a Pokeball, a Stardust, and a Heart Scale. Granite Cave has a plethora of items, but we can't access most of them until we have the Mach Bike. So for now, we grab the Flash TM from a hiker and start catching some Pokemon. There's 4 new ones to collect, and the first is Makuhita. Makuhita is tenacious. It will keep getting up and attacking its foe however many times it is knocked down. Every time it gets back up, this Pokemon stores more energy in its body for evolving. This is actually a really cool dex entry to me because I kind of assumed Makuhita would be a pushover, but after reading this, I was definitely wrong. The next encounter I find is a little yellow Abra. Abra sleeps 18 hours a day, however, it can sense the presence of foes even while sleeping. In such a situation, this Pokemon immediately teleports to safety. 18 hours of sleep per day is crazy. Third on the list is Zubat. Zubat remains quietly unmoving in a dark spot during the bright daylight hours. It does so because prolonged exposure to the sun causes its body to become slightly burned. I would like to take this time to apologize to all my former Zubats because they have definitely been sent out a lot during daylight hours. The last Pokemon is a 5% Geodude encounter, which takes a while, but eventually we're able to grab one. The longer Geodude lives, the more its edges are chipped and worn away, making it more rounded in appearance. However, this Pokemon's heart will remain hard, craggy, and rough always. This makes me think there are some Geodudes out there that are square-shaped, which would honestly be really funny. Regardless, we can now make our way into Steven's room. He tells us some interesting things about the markings on the wall, and then says we might have what it takes to become the Pokemon League champion. Oh, and he also gives us the Steel Wing TM. Cool, I guess. Next, we need to make our way to the beach, or Route 109. My introduction to the Pokemon franchise started when I was just a little kid, which is likely true for some of you watching. But I'm only 22 years old, so I didn't grow up with stuff like Pokemon Emerald or Fire Red. Instead, my first region was Johto, specifically Pokemon Heart Gold on the Nintendo DS. I had a friend growing up, and one day when I was over at his house, he was showing me his copy of Pokemon Diamond. He handed me his DS, and I remember running into an Abomasnow and using his Infernape's Flare Blitz to KO it. So that night, I went home and begged my mom to let me get a DS and a Pokemon game. At the time, I didn't know there were different Pokemon games. All I knew is that he was playing Pokemon and I wanted that too. So the very next day, my mom and I walked into a GameStop and we bought a used Golden Legend of Zelda DS and a copy of Pokemon Heart Gold. I went home, booted up the game, and had no idea what I was doing. Obviously, I don't remember every little detail, but I do know that Cyndaquil was my starter. I then happily made my way through the game and eventually found myself in Violet City, but I was stuck. For some reason, I couldn't get into Falconer's Gym. I didn't know I needed to go to Sprout Tower first, so I just assumed that the reason was because my Pokemon was too low level. I ended up training him all the way to level 20 before finally asking my babysitter for some help. Basically, he did a quick Google search and let me know that I need to take on Sprout Tower before I can head to the gym. But as far as my first playthrough, that's really all I remember other than getting really stuck in Claire's gym. That puzzle even had my babysitter struggling. Anyways, I know this is a Hoenn video, but I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about myself as we go through this region. Alright, now let's go through and collect the items and hidden items here on the beach, which by the way was really hard to find all of these without the item finder. Here I'm able to grab a Revive, the Soft Sand, an Ether, a Heart Scale, another Heart Scale, a Great Ball, and a PP Up. With that, Route 109 is complete, and since there are no new Pokemon here, let's head up to Slateport City. In the market, we can grab the Alakazite before heading north to the fan club where a nice lady hands us a Soothe Bell. I then proceed to spend almost all of my money in the Pokemart because there's a cool little Easter egg in the museum. If you try and enter but can't afford the $50 entrance fee, the lady will assume you're with Team Magma and tell you to go and catch up with them, which I think is really funny. There's also a grunt on the right that will give you the Thief TM, so I'll make sure to grab that too. Upstairs, there's two Magma Grunts who challenge us to a battle, the first of which has a Numel who falls to 2 tackles from Flaffy. The second leads Zubat, which falls to a single Thunderbolt, and then sends a Numel who falls to a single Scald. Once defeated, Team Magma's leader Maxie introduces himself, but I don't know. He just doesn't feel as threatening as some of the other evil team leaders to me. I try to leave the city, but some girl named Alicia is in town and apparently wants us to do some contest hall stuff. But don't worry, I'm not going to be doing any of that. I do, however, head inside and talk to the sailor to collect the Torment TM. Route 110 is next in line, so let's take care of these trainers. This video is kind of an experiment on what kind of content people enjoy and what kind of content I enjoy making, so I'm going to tell you guys a story of my first ever shiny Pokemon while we fight these trainers. So I've been shiny hunting long before I ever made a YouTube video. The first time I ever wanted or cared to catch a shiny Pokemon was when my brother found a full odd shiny Tentacle in Pokemon Y. I was so jealous and I needed to get my hand on one. So I attempted to use the radar in my copy of Pokemon X. I failed pretty badly, and to this day I don't fully understand it, but somehow I ended up encountering a shiny Gothita. Now, I was excited to have this cool shiny, but a Gothita of all things was kind of underwhelming. And if you were anything like me back in 2013, you were accepting all sorts of trade requests from random people. Most of them would just flex their totally legit shiny Pokemon. Like, I remember this one guy had a shiny Volcanion, which looked super cool, but obviously he did not trade it to me. Eventually, I did run into a person that offered up a shiny Pokemon, a shiny Kecleon. I put up my Gothita and he actually accepted the trade. I was super excited about this shiny. Looking back, I don't really know why though. It was level 100 and almost definitely hacked. But what I did know is that anything was better than my little Gothita. I wish I could say that I still had the save file today, but obviously I do not. As stated in the beginning of this video, the whole point is, well, to stop resetting my old save files. If either Kecleon or Gothita are in the game and huntable by DexNav, I will 100% try my luck at getting one or both of them, because I actually have neither in my collection. Anyways, that's the story of my first shiny and how I basically threw it away like a piece of trash. Also, I would really appreciate any sort of feedback on this video. Let me know what you liked, what you would change, or maybe something you would like to see more of. For example, I kept the bottom screen out of this video because I didn't want to crop the gameplay, but I'm sure some people might prefer it if they could see it. Anyways, let's hop into the items. Thanks to the win against our rival, we now have the dowsing machine, which will make item collection a lot easier. Retracing our steps, we're able to grab some Lepa berries, a Pokeball, a Revive, a Great Ball, a Full Heal, and a Dire Hit. And as far as Pokemon go, there are quite a few new ones available to us. The first of which is a little Minun. Minun is more concerned about cheering on its partners than its own safety. It shorts out the electricity in its body to create brilliant showers of sparks to cheer on its teammates. Minun is actually such a selfless Pokemon, and it really makes me want to shiny hunt one of these guys. Next up, I encounter a very round Voltorb. Voltorb was first sighted at a company that manufactures Pokeballs. The link between that sighting and the fact that this Pokemon looks very similar to a Pokeball remains a mystery. It's honestly surprising to me that there's no update to its lore, especially considering this Pokemon was part of the original 151. Third, I encounter another Gen 1 staple being Oddish. During the daytime, Oddish buries itself in soil to absorb nutrients from the ground using its entire body. The more fertile soil, the glossier its leaves become. Oddish is such a simple creature, and I can't help but love it. Next up is the Pokemon whose name I forgot. Virtually all of Gulpin's body is its stomach. As a result, it can swallow something its own size. This Pokemon's stomach contains a special fluid that digests anything. The fact that this Pokemon could digest something like a metal pipe is insane to me. The last Pokemon I find here is Electrike, which is kind of weird because it has the highest encounter rate, but oh well. Electrike stores electricity in its long body hair. This Pokemon simulates its leg muscles with electric charges. These jolts of power give its legs explosive acceleration performance. That's a pretty bold claim for a Pokemon with the same speed stat as Smoochum. Before heading into Mauville, we need to make a quick stop by Route 103. This Aroma Lady has a single Roselia who Neptune can easily take down. Second is twins Amy and Liv, who both fall to the combined efforts from Flaffy and Nidorino. Third is Pokefan Miguel, whose Skitty is no match for Neptune. And last is Fisherman Andrew, who only has 2 Magikarps, so they aren't really a threat to us. There's no new Pokemon to catch here, so all we need to do is grab these items: a Guard Spec, some Chesto Berries, and Lepa Berries. With that complete, it's time to take on the biggest section yet, Mauville City. All we really need to do before challenging the gym though is collect all the items, so here they are: an X Speed, a Globe, an X Defense, the Mach Bike, the VS Recorder, the TM for Round, Dolls for the starter Pokemon, a Nugget, a Luxury Ball, a Max Repel, a Poketoy, and a Metronome. Wally is guarding the gym, but his singular Ralts is no threat to our overleveled team. Finally, it's time for the gym, and yet again, we're going to skip the trainers here, but I will say that Watson is absolutely posted up right here. First is Magnemite, which gets burnt to a crisp by our Ninetales. Second is Voltorb, who easily gets taken down by a dig from Nidorino. Also, still waiting for a Moonstone. Hopefully we can evolve this guy soon. Last is Magneton, who falls to a single dig, earning us the 3rd gym badge and ensuring we shouldn't have any more Pokemon disobedience problems again. Now, with Mauville complete, it's time to head right to Route 117. There are a few trainers here, so it's time for another story. This time, I want to talk about my personal struggles with comparison. I constantly find myself looking at other YouTube channels and wondering why I'm not doing as well as them. But in reality, some of these YouTubers have been making content for years with hundreds of videos. And as of right now, I only have 12 videos on my channel, so who am I to compare myself to them? In reality, you will never be the best at anything. There will always be someone better than you no matter what you do, but that's okay. Comparing yourself to other people can only lead you down one of two paths, but both paths are bad. Path 1 is where you look at someone else and think that you'll never be as good as them, and that path can lead to depression and even quitting. Option 2 is where you look at someone else and think that you're so much better than them. While it's okay to be proud of what you've done, I don't think there's ever a time when you should look down on someone else for not being as good as you. You don't know what they've been through or sacrificed to get to where they are today. This goes both ways too. You can't really know what someone else has been through, just like they don't know exactly what you've been through either. All of this to say, I've been trying to stay out of the numbers recently. It's so easy for me to keep checking the views, likes, and comments on my videos. And in reality, there are a lot of super nice people that enjoy my content and let me know that in the comments too. So even if just one of you is struggling out there, or maybe even considering giving up on whatever goal you're working towards, take a second and look back. Look at how far you've come. You've put in so much work, and in the end, only you can achieve your goals. No one else can do that for you. Right now, my goal is to make the best YouTube videos that I possibly can. It's something that I'm passionate about and absolutely love doing. So no matter what, I'm going to keep working at it because I know that one day it's all going to pay off. So right now, maybe you're asleep, maybe you're following along catching the Pokemon, or maybe you're studying and you have this on in the background. Regardless, you specifically have helped me get one step closer to doing what I love. So thank you. Alright, sorry for getting a little bit deep for a second there, but now it's time to collect some items. I backtracked to the beginning of the route to collect some pineapple berries, a revive, and a great ball. As far as Pokemon, there's actually quite a few, so let's get to catching. My first encounter is a Goldeen. Goldeen is a very beautiful Pokemon with fins that billow elegantly in water. However, don't let your guard down around this Pokemon. It could ram you powerfully with its horn. I wish Goldeen and Seeking had better stats because I low-key really like this line. My second encounter is a Marill. Marill's oil-filled tail acts much like a life preserver. If you see its tail bobbing on the water's surface, it's a sure indication that this Pokemon is diving beneath the water to feed on aquatic plants. I can just imagine some Marills bobbing in the water while I'm at the beach, which would honestly be really cute. Next up is Illumise. Illumise attracts a swarm of Volbeat using a sweet fragrance. Once the Volbeat gathered, this Pokemon leads the lit up swarm in drawing geometric designs on the canvas of the night sky. This is really cool. Having Volbeat and Illumise fly around in the sky lighting it up seems so interesting and would definitely be something I would stick around to watch. Fourth is Roselia. Roselia shoots sharp thorns as projectiles at any opponent that tries to steal the flowers on its arms. The aroma of this Pokemon brings serenity to living things. Well, I definitely would not be getting near this thing's roses. Ouch. The last Pokemon here is a Volbeat. With the arrival of night, Volbeat emits light from its tail. It communicates with others by adjusting the intensity and flashing of its light. This Pokemon is attracted by the sweet aroma of Illumise. This obviously goes hand in hand with its counterpart, but I find the way it communicates to be pretty cool. With Route 117 complete, we arrive in Verdanturf Town, and the only thing to do here is grab some important items. The Mawilite, a Repel, the Attractium, and an intriguing stone. Next, we take a quick trip back to Rusturf Tunnel. We can take the first exit to collect an HP up in the black glasses, and back inside we can collect a max ether and the Agronite. Oh, and this guy will also give you a repeat ball if you're interested. With those complete, it's time to head north to Route 111. On the left, there's a family of 4 we need to take on called the Winstraights. First is Victor, whose Taillow falls to an Ice Beam, and Zigzagoon falls to a Scald. And thanks to the EXP share, our Flaffy evolves into an Ampharos. Second is Victoria, and her Roselia falls to an Ice Beam from Milotic. Third is Vivi, and Milotic continues the sweep by taking out all 3 of her Pokemon. Last is Vicky, and her Meditite easily gets taken down with a single Scald. Upon defeat, you can head in the house and they'll reward you with the Macho Brace, which is kind of cool. Moving on to Route 112, we have a ton of trainers. But this time I'm going to tell you guys a story about the worst shiny fail that I've ever had and genuinely still haunts me to this day. This takes place in some of my favorite Pokemon games, being Ultra Sun and Moon, and I spent a ton of time catching Pokemon, breeding, and transferring up from old games because I wanted the shiny charm so bad. Alola has my favorite method hunt, which is SOS calling, but that's not how I hunted this Pokemon. I wanted to try my luck at a good old-fashioned soft reset hunt. So I hopped into the Ultra Warp Ride and rode on my Lunala until I came across a green wormhole. Inside was an iconic legendary Pokemon, maybe even the most iconic in the entire franchise, Mewtwo. So I got my rubber bands on my DS, pulled out a calculator to keep track of the encounters, and started resetting. I wasn't expecting to see anything for at least a few hundred encounters, but literally on my 51st encounter, a green Mewtwo appeared on my screen and I started freaking out. An insanely lucky encounter, only 51 resets in. I was overjoyed, but my team wasn't that high level. Not to the point where I was worried, but I brought my standard Elite 4 team, which were all around level 60, the same as Mewtwo. For some reason, I wanted to get a clean switch into my False Swipe Pokemon. So you know what I did? I swapped into my Galissopod, thinking to myself, oh, this is perfect. Mewtwo will put me into emergency exit range and I'll get a free switch into a new Pokemon. Well, fun fact, emergency exit does not work the same way in wild battles as it does in trainer battles. This Mewtwo put my Galissopod below half HP, activating the emergency exit ability, and with that, making me flee the battle. This was a truly heartbreaking moment for me, my joy taken away in an instant, and even worse, it was all my fault. But you know what? I needed to reclaim this thing, and I needed to do it fast. The pain from this fail kept eating away at me, and I knew if I didn't reclaim it, it would continue to haunt me. So I started pulling some no-life gaming hours. I'm talking 12 hours of resets per day, and well, I ended up going almost triple odds for this thing at 3,600 encounters before it finally shined. And my reaction wasn't filled with the same excitement as the first, but instead a sigh of relief. I was free from the trap that was resetting for hours and hours on end, just to reclaim a Pokemon that I had already hunted. And as soon as I found that Mewtwo, I immediately threw my Master Ball at it. I didn't want to take a single risk, and if you've ever reclaimed a shiny Pokemon, you may be able to relate to this. But I can guarantee you one thing, and it's that I will never make that same mistake again. That Mewtwo is still sitting in my copy of Ultra Moon, and I don't ever plan on moving it up to home. And what makes all of this even better is that I'm currently shiny hunting every Gen 1 shiny Pokemon, and if you're at all familiar with my other videos, then you likely already know that. But what that means is that I'm going to have to hunt another shiny Mewtwo, and I can only hope that it goes faster than my first one. Anyways, that's my shiny fail story, but let's hop into the Pokemon. So for this, I'm going to be combining Route 112 and Fiery Path since there's nothing we can do in Fiery Path right now other than catch some Pokemon. First up, I encounter a blue Machop. Machop's muscles are special. They never get sore no matter how much they are used in exercise. This Pokemon has sufficient power to hurl 100 adult humans. By the way, Machop is 2'7", so seeing this thing hurl 100 humans would be nuts. Next up is the Fire Ground type Pokemon Numel. Numel is extremely dull-witted. It doesn't notice being hit. However, it can't stand hunger even for a second. This Pokemon's body is a seething cauldron of boiling magma. Poor Numel, he just wants to eat and chill. Moving into Fiery Path is Coughing. If Coughing becomes agitated, it raises the toxicity of its internal gases and jets them out all over its body. This Pokemon may also overinflate its round body, then explode. Overinflate and explode? Actually, yeah, that checks out. Next up is everyone's favorite purple Pokemon, Grimer. Grimer's sludgy and rubbery body can be forced through any opening, however small it may be. This Pokemon enters sewers to drink filthy wastewater. Grimer's body is rubbery? Okay, I was definitely not expecting that. Fifth is the Gen 3 staple Torkoal. Torkoal digs through mountains in search of coal. If it finds some, it fills hollow spaces on its shell with the coal and burns it. If it is attacked, this Pokemon spouts thick black smoke to beat a retreat. How does this turtle dig through mountains? Like what? Anyways, there's only one Pokemon left, and does anyone know what this thing is called? Molten magma courses throughout Slugma's circulatory system. If this Pokemon is chilled, the magma cools and hardens. Its body turns brittle and chunks fall off, reducing its size. I like to think that if Slugma does get chilled, its body turns gray and into its shiny colors. That completes all of the new Pokemon, so we're moving back to Route 111. Just outside is an Ace Trainer, but my Lodic can take care of his Electrike, Bagon, and Makuhita. Above that, we're introduced to secret bases, which is something I never spent any time doing the first time that I played this game. So this time, I'm going to spend a few minutes here building a little base. It isn't much, but we don't have access to that many items right now. So every once in a while, we'll drop back by this base and update it as we continue our journey through the Hoenn region. There's still a few more trainers on the route, so let's take care of them. Cece's Spoink falls to a Scald, and so does her Mawile. Next is Dion, who just has a Linoon and also falls to a Scald. Last is Brooke, an iconic trainer from the Gen 3 games, but her team is no match for my Lodic. Okay, I promise I'll start using some of the other Pokemon soon, I just really like my Lodic shiny. There's only a couple of items to grab here, which is just an elixir and some berries. I make my way east to Route 113 where a ton of trainers await me, so here's a quick montage of me taking them all down. Okay, with those out of the way, let's go back and collect all of the items. An elixir, a super repel, the double team TM, a max ether, a nugget, the suit sack, and a hyper potion. And now we get to collect 3 brand new Pokemon. First up, I get super lucky and find the 5% encounter Skarmory. Skarmory is entirely encased in hard protective armor. This Pokemon flies close to 190 miles per hour. It slashes foes with its wings that possesses sword-like cutting edges. Now I'm really curious what Skarmory looks like under its protective armor. Second is the very cute Pokemon Sandshrew. Sandshrew's body is configured to absorb water without waste, enabling it to survive in an arid desert. This Pokemon curls up to protect itself from its enemies. Sandshrew is really underappreciated in my opinion and is easily one of the best designed Pokemon from Generation 1. Finally, we get to Spinda. All the Spinda that exist in the world are said to have utterly unique spot patterns. The shaky, tottering steps of the Pokemon give it the appearance of dancing. Spinda, I wish you had slightly usable stats because I low-key would use you on the team. Anyways, we're moving into Fallabor Town where we can pick up some new items, being a nugget, honey, and the berry blender. Left of here is Route 114, which guards Meteor Falls. This time, I want to talk to you guys about my future plans for this channel and what type of content you can expect from me going forward. First, I definitely want to keep the Shiny Living Dex series on the channel, and it'll probably take a couple years, but I think it would be super cool to be the first person on YouTube to have a fully documented Shiny Living Dex. I've probably caught over 1,000 shinies since I started hunting all the way back in 2013, but again, I want each and every reaction and shiny to be documented. Secondly, if this video does well, I also would love to make this a series on the channel too. I assume there would be about 3 hour-long videos going through the game and catching Pokemon just like this, and maybe an extra video for completing the decks with the mons unavailable in the games that would need to be traded or transferred up. I think having 2 ongoing series would be best for the channel here because I really struggled with burnout in the past. For example, the first 2 Shiny Living Dex videos totaling to 60 shinies were all caught within a 2-week span, and during those 2 weeks I probably spent about 15 to 20 hours editing each one of those videos too. I'm not complaining about that or anything because I actually really enjoy editing my own videos, but after those 2, I was not ready to go straight into shiny hunting part 3 of the Shiny Living Dex. Anyways, I know I'm kind of rambling here, but the support on the channel has been insane recently with some of the videos reaching over 10,000 views, which really means the world to me. If you're enjoying this video and want to see part 2 of the Forever Save series, subscribing to the channel is a really good way to let me know that you like the content here, and it's completely free. So if you end up not liking the content later on, you can always come back and unsubscribe later. Route 114 actually has quite a few items that we need to pick up. The Dig TM, the TM for Roar, a Revive, some Aspire berries, a C-Dot doll, a Carbos, a protein, a Comet shard, and an energy powder. With those collected, let's jump into the new Pokemon. First is Swablu, but since I already have one that I traded up, we will not get the new Dex entry on screen. So we will jump right into the next Pokemon, which is Nuzleaf. Nuzleaf live in densely overgrown forests. They occasionally venture out of the forest to startle people. This Pokemon dislikes having its long nose pinched. I wonder how they discovered this. Someone must have literally gone up to Nuzleaf and just decided to pinch its nose. Last is the Pokemon Omega Ruby exclusive Zangoose. Memories of battling its arch-rival Survivor are etched into every cell of Zangoose's body. This Pokemon adroitly dodges attacks with incredible agility. I know Zangoose and Survivor are rivals, but man, these guys must have some insane beef. With that done, there's some dialogue in Mount Moon about a meteorite or something before we get challenged to a double battle with our rival. It's pretty free, so we're able to win in just a few turns. But more importantly, there are some new items to grab here, the Full Heal and a Moonstone. I of course immediately feed this to our Nidorino, who finally evolves into a Nidoking. The only new Pokemon we can grab here is a Solrock. Solrock is a new species of Pokemon that is said to have fallen from space. It floats in air and moves silently. In battle, this Pokemon releases intensely bright light. I find it interesting that in the game, Solrock doesn't actually give off this super bright light that its description talks about, but it also kind of makes sense because I'm sure that would be super hard to look at. Just south of here is Route 115, which has 3 super easy trainers: Black Belt Knob with a Machop, Collector Hector with the Survivor, and Battle Girl Cindy with a Meditite. I then make my way to the beach to collect a hidden heart scale, a Great Ball, some Weeper berries, and a Zinc. There's no new Pokemon for us to collect here, so it's off to Mount Chimney. Tabitha has a Coughing that falls to a Nidoking, and then a Numel who easily falls to Glaceon. Last is Maxie, who we are just way too overleveled for. So Mightyena falls to a Poison Jab, Camerupt falls to a Dig, and Golbat falls to an Ice Beam. For our win, we're rewarded with a Swablu evolution who promptly evolves into an Altaria. Maxie then reluctantly hands us the Meteorite, and item-wise we can collect the Incinerate TM, a Zinc, and a Protein. Next up is Jagged Pass, and oh boy is there a lot here. First things first, I need to go swap my Mach Bike for the Acro Bike, but I will briefly touch on something while we do these trainers. Does anyone else get like super hyper fixated on a game? Like, I'm talking you're so excited to play it that you're waking up early even on days that you don't have to. Well, I certainly do, but it's pretty rare for me to find a game that addictive and fun. But sometimes it does. Whenever a new Pokemon game releases, this definitely applies for the first few days. Also, seasons 3, 4, and 5 of Fortnite for me were super grindy. But recently, I've been playing a ton of Palia. It's such a chill game, but can also be pretty grindy if you want it to be. And me personally, I really love grindy games. Stuff where you can fish for super rare things, and hunt for insanely low odds items. Kinda like shiny hunting. Who would have thought? Anyways, this isn't sponsored or anything, as my channel is way too small for sponsors, but I will take these few seconds to ask you to subscribe again. Anyways, I only play a few hours a day right now, but I'm really loving going around and grinding resources and doing quests in that game. Anyways, let's get back to Pokemon. There are a lot of items here, and you will need the Acrobike to get all of them. The Flame Charge TM, a Super Repel, the Rock Polish TM, a Full Heal, another Full Heal, a Great Ball, a Max Ether, and an X Defense. Once complete, we can head into the grass and collect the one new Pokemon available here, Spoink. Spoink bounces around on its tail. The shock of its bouncing makes its heart pump. As a result, this Pokemon cannot afford to stop bouncing. If it stops, its heart will stop. Wow, that's actually a really dark dex entry. Hopefully you evolve soon, Spoink. With that, we finally arrive in Lavaridge Town, where we can collect the Swords Dance TM, an Ice Heal, and a Charcoal. Oh, and the Why Not Egg too. I picked up this egg thinking I would just need to ride back and forth for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. But no, almost 45 minutes of riding this bike, and this thing finally hatches into a Why Not. I do not recommend hatching this thing without Flame Body. And yes, I know I had a Slugma with Flame Body in the PC. I just kind of forgot about it at the time, so my bad. Now it's time to head inside the Lavaridge Gym, which looks a lot different from its design back in Generation 3. There's a ton of trainers here, but as usual, we will skip past them and right to the gym leader herself, Flannery. She leads Slugma, and I send out the MVP of this run, Milotic. A single Scald is then enough to take it down, along with her Numel and her Torkoal. Just outside of the gym, Brendan rewards us with the Go Goggles, giving us access to the Route 111 Desert, where there is a lot of new items and Pokemon to collect. But first, we need to take care of the trainers. So far, I've really enjoyed my journey through the Hoenn region. As stated at the beginning of this video, it's been a pretty long time since I've actually set foot here. The Pokédex in this game is one of my all-time favorites, having some iconic staples like Wurmple, Mudkip, and Hariyama to name a few. ORAS gets a lot of hate for being a bad game or not living up to the remake expectation that people wanted. However, I think this Pokemon game not only succeeded in reimagining the original games, but I believe that it actually exceeded expectations, at least for me personally. The cutscenes are very clean, the graphics are some of my favorites, and we haven't got there yet, but being able to fly around on Mega Latios is such a cool feature added to this game. Speaking of features added, there are a ton of other great ones. First, the Dex Nav, which I think is genuinely a really cool way to not only hunt shinies, but to get egg moves and hidden abilities without the hassle of breeding and trading. Then of course is Horde Encounters, which were introduced in Pokemon X and Y, but these games are still part of the same generation, so I would consider it a new feature to the games here too. I've seen so many people talk about how horde hunting with the shiny charm brings in a ton of shinies, yet I've never gotten to experience that for myself as I'm still missing the shiny charm. I do of course plan on completing the Pokédex in these games to get it, and part of the reason for this series in general is to be able to hunt the shinies a lot easier for the Living Dex series, which of course if you haven't checked that out, make sure you do. Touching more on some of the features in this remake, I want to cover the secret bases in this game. I didn't spend much time originally with them, but after checking Bulbapedia, there are some really cool secret base items and a ton of interesting ways to collect them. It really goes to show that these games were made with a lot of attention to detail, and I really appreciate that. There are so many features put into Pokemon games that the average person completely skips over. For example, the contest halls, the Pokeathlon Dome in Heart Gold, Pokestar Studios in Unova, and most of the endgame content like Battle Trees, Battle Subway, and Battle Frontier. The standard way to play Pokemon is to run through the game, take down the Elite Four, and call it a day for the save file. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it's just not how I prefer to play these games, and I want to take some time to appreciate the smaller things that are usually overlooked. Anyways, let's hop into the items. Here we make sure to collect a Stardust, a second Stardust, the Root Fossil, a Revive, a PP Up, a Protein, a Rare Candy, the Safety Goggles, and the TM for Sandstorm. There are also 3 new Pokemon to collect here, which is pretty exciting, and first up is Trapinch. Trapinch's nest is a sloped, bowl-like pit dug in sand. This Pokemon patiently waits for prey to tumble down the pit. Its giant jaws have enough strength to crush even boulders. By the way, Trapinch has a base attack stat of 100, which is kind of insane for a stage 1 Pokemon. Next up is Cacnea. Cacnea lives in arid locations such as deserts. It releases a strong aroma from its flower to attract prey. When prey come near, this Pokemon shoots sharp thorns from its body to bring the victim down. I always thought that thing on Cacnea's head was a crown, but I guess that was just me. Anyways, the final Pokemon here is Baltoy. Baltoy moves while spinning around on its one foot. Primitive wall paintings depict this Pokemon living among people were discovered in some ancient ruins. Then I make my way all the way back to Petalburg, where we're going to challenge the 5th gym leader, Norman. For most, Norman is one of, if not the most challenging gym leader in the game. He has 2 Slackings with insanely high base stat totals on par with even legendaries. But they're just no match for my over-leveled shiny team. And by that I mean specifically my Glaceon. He gets a clutch critical hit with Ice Beam to take down the first Slaking in a single hit. Next up is Vigoroth, who also easily falls to an Ice Beam. Then is the final Slaking, who falls to 2 Ice Beams, giving Glaceon the sweep and earning us badge number 5. Our dad is torn between being happy or sad after his defeat, and eventually rewards us with the TM for Retaliate. We then make our way east of Mauville to take on Route 118. As I take on these trainers, I'm at peace. Sometimes video games are the best thing to take your mind off of the worries and stress of life, and some people may say that that is a bad thing. And while it can be bad, that doesn't mean it has to be. Pokemon specifically has helped me get through some hard times in my life. Sometimes I feel alone, sometimes I feel stressed, maybe even worried about the future. But even so, I've always been able to find some sort of comfort in Pokemon. Sometimes I'm shiny hunting, sometimes I'm playing through a new save file, and sometimes I get on my bike and ride around through the region. It's never failed to help me through some rough patches. Maybe you're struggling right now. Maybe you're worried about a job or an upcoming test. Just take a deep breath. Stressing about it will only make it worse. Just do the best you can and keep moving. It's all going to work out. As I approach the end of this route, Steven is waiting for me. After a quick chat, Latias comes down and gives us a ride over to Southern Island. Here, we're challenged by 2 Team Magma members, but thanks to Milotic's newly learned Surf, we're able to win the battle in just 1 turn. Once defeated, Latios is waiting for us and insists on joining our team. Here, we also get our hands on the Mega Bracelet and the Latiosite, which is absolutely insane. If you were worried about my team being too overpowered, just remember you get a Mega Latios after the 5th gym. Anyways, Latias drops us back at Route 118 and it's time to collect the items here. A Hard Scale, a Stardust, the Good Rod, an Iron, some Citrus Berries, and a Hyper Potion. And as far as new Pokemon go, we'll start with Kecleon. Kecleon is capable of changing its body colors at will to blend in with its surroundings. There is one exception. This Pokemon can't change the zigzag pattern on its belly. Honestly, I did not know that about Kecleon. The zigzag always being present is actually kind of cool. After a few more encounters, we run into a Pelipper. Pelipper is a flying transporter that carries small Pokemon and eggs inside its massive bill. This Pokemon builds its nest on steep cliffs facing the sea. For some reason, I didn't expect Pelipper to have a nest. It makes sense though, but they are pretty big birds. Third is Lanoon. Lanoon always runs full speed and only in straight lines. If facing an obstacle, it makes a right angle turn to evade it. This Pokemon is very challenged by gently curving roads. I feel like this Pokemon could get around easier by making a zigzag pattern or something. I don't know. Anyways, there's only 1 Pokemon left here and it's the 5% fishing encounter Carvana. But while we search for it, let me give you guys my closing thoughts. This video took an insane amount of time to make, so again, a simple like, comment, or subscribe goes a really long way. Also, I feel like I've really gotten to know some of the Pokemon better, and the dex entries here have given me a new appreciation for them. If you made it all the way to the end here, I really want to say thank you so much. It really is my dream to one day do YouTube as my job. So watching this far into the video makes that dream one step closer to becoming a reality. Carvana's strongly developed jaws and its sharply pointed fangs pack the destructive power to rip out boat holes. Many boats have been attacked and sunk by this Pokemon. If you take nothing away from this video, just know this: you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So keep on going.